Yeah, I think so. We were talking about it today with Iron Pigs manager Dave Brundage, and just how he's a completely different hitter, even from last year, and even a little bit from the beginning of this season. Last year, there was a lot of times where he was trying to do too much in the box, trying to hit a 500-foot home run every time he went up, and he kind of, midway through the season, realized, all he had to do was relax, and he showed some positive signs late last year. But really, all season, he's just been on a tear here. He's a different hitter. He's laying off a lot of pitches. He's dissecting how guys are throwing to him, and he knows what's coming. He's having a lot more patient at bats. He had a walk-off two-run single last night where he laid off a fastball and he laid off a slider and he bought himself another fastball and he drilled it to center field. Today he had a game-tying hit in the 10th inning. The same deal. He did take one big hack on the first pitch, but then kind of sailed back down and on a 2-2 count, drove the one to the outfield. So he's a completely different hitter than he was last year, and he's just a lot more confident in the box. I think he's ready to go up. I think whether that translates right away to the majors, that'll be interesting to see. It's more of a I don't think it's anything physical with him. It's a lot of mental and just trying to understand that taking each at bat as it comes and doing what he can. I think he'll be pretty good.
Greg, did he give any indication in your time dealing with him as to why he maybe struggled last year or why his spring training wasn't anything that had the fans all that excited about? Any reason for him from him as to why neither of those two opportunities stood out?
Yeah, he'll be the first to admit it that he was trying to do too much those times. In both spring trainings and even when he went up in September, he's a really aggressive batter, and a lot of people said that's his best attribute. Don't lose that, but at the same time, be smart, aggressive. Be patient in the plate, wait for your pitch, and I think he was trying to impress too many people in September and in spring training, which is natural. You forget sometimes he's only 22 years old. He wants to be in the majors. That's his dream like everybody else. So I think, a lot of those times when he had the spotlight on him, whether it was spring training or September, he tried to do it all in one at-bat or, one game. He said that he realized, if he just takes it at-bat by at-bat, which is what he did down here in the first month, and, it really turned him around. He's hitting 350, leading the league in doubles, 23 RBIs, hitting the ball to all fields was really, a good sign for him, not just trying to get pull happy. So I think, he knows what happened last time, I think. And like I said, I think that'll be the key for him going up is trying to relax and not do it all in one at-bat.
Greg Joyce is with us. He covers the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs. That's where Franco is. How about his defense? I think that's something everybody's excited to see, a right-handed bat and what he can do offensively. But Scott Profrock told us earlier that, he is a tremendous defensive player, and I don't know that gets enough publicity because of his, offensive prowess.
Yeah, I agree. And, Brundage, the manager here, just said it today. He said he's the best defensive third baseman that he's had. And like you said, everybody knows him for his bat, but some of the plays he's made here in the field, whether it's diving to his left, diving to his right, and having a strong throw, or, charging on a slow roller and barehanding, he's got a strong arm, soft hands. I think he's very underrated defensively. And they had, moved him a little over to first base at times last year just to, keep him versatile. And they really haven't done that. He's played there 2 or 3 times this year because he's so valuable at third base. And I think that's one of the areas where a lot of people will be able to see, when he gets called up, that's part of what makes him a special player is his defensive ability. He didn't have too many errors here. I think he had 1 or 2 this season. He was pretty impressive. He makes some of those plays that I'm sure will be on the top 10 highlight reel.
Let's talk about the guy who's coming down real quick, and Cody Ashley. Obviously, he's probably disappointed, but he's come out and hit pretty well the first 2 games. I think 429 in the 2 games. But any plays in left field, anything that stands out? Does he look like he has the ability to make this transition rather easily?
Yeah, I think so. Last night, his first game, he didn't really get tested. There was one shallow fly to left field last night, and he came in and caught it. Today, he got tested a little bit more. There was one hit, a sinking liner to the gap to his left. He got a good break on it. He caught that. There was another one that was another sinking liner, one of those tough decision ones. You dive or you play on a hop. He kind of dove, but he scooped it on a hop, and he didn't let it get past him, which could have been, a tough play. So he's looked pretty good so far. I mean, hasn't been anything too crazy hit out of him. I think, he's got to be down here for at least 10 days. So, I'm sure there'll be some bumps along the way, but I think he's athletic enough to make the transition. You've seen a lot of guys do it in the past. And Brundage said today he's seen a lot less athletic guys make the transition to left field, and they've been all right. So I think he'll be able to do it. I think he said himself that he was surprised that he's down here, making that transition. A lot of people pointed out, he could have done it, got a start on it in spring training. I don't know if they thought Franco would have been ready this early, or what the decision was behind that, not to go after that more in spring training. But I think he seems real determined not to be down here for longer than he has to. And he reported right away, played last night, played today. They go on the road now for 7 games. So he'll play those 7, I'm sure, in left field, and then he's got to come back here for at least one more. So it'll be interesting to see.
Hey, I saw Philippe Almont pitch today, and he started 7 innings, and, that's something that when he was in Seattle, he started. The Phillies kind of tried to make him a reliever. Has this been something that's been working? Is there a possibility that, that maybe this is a better spot for him as a starter? Or is this something they've been using him more as, or is that something that is rather new?
Yeah, today was his 4th start. He said when he got in spring training, when he was sent to the minor league camp, he kind of, going back to starting was always in the back of his mind a little bit. A lot of people back home always asked him, why aren't you going back to starting? And he kind of played around with it. But when he got sent to minor league spring training, he kind of figured, the Phillies bullpen is set, that he's not going to get back up to the major leagues that way. And he knew, his best shot would become going back to starting. And so the Iron Pigs were all set with their 5 starters to start the season. But then some moves, and all of a sudden, when Severino Gonzalez got called up to make that spot start for the Phillies, all of a sudden the Iron Pigs needed a starter, and he filled in. He threw 5 shutout innings that day. He was real excited about it. He said leading up to that game, he was like a kid on Christmas morning. He couldn't wait to get after it. And he's thrown 3 starts at home now. First one was 5 innings. Second one was 6 innings. Today was 7 innings. He hasn't allowed a run in any of them. Today he had no walks, 7 strikeouts. He made 1 start on the road where he let up 3 runs, but that was his toughest start yet. But he's looked really good, and I think that one of the biggest things that just starting allows him to more room for error. But he hasn't really had too much yet. I think he's trying to be cautiously optimistic about it. I think he's really excited, that it's something's finally working for him again. But I think he's trying to not get ahead of himself yet. I'm sure there'll be a few games here and there where, maybe the walks get to him or he'll get hit. But I think this is, his way of knowing that, this is the way to get back up. And I know it's a small sample size, but he's looked great so far.
Well, the no walks, that's something that stood out when you said that to me. That's been a big problem for him, has been the control. We're talking with Greg Joyce. He covers the Iron Pigs. And let's talk about Dom Brown. And, he's an interesting case. He's a guy who's young, and yet the Phillies are keeping him down there, though. They kind of told us today, Scott Profrock joined us and said, well, he got hurt, he was behind, and he was making the transition from left to right, so they thought that he needed some more time. But he's a guy who's been an all-star. Typically, this is a little uncharacteristic. How is he handling it, and do you see a guy who can maybe revive his career? I mean, obviously, he went from an all-star to almost an afterthought at this point, from the number 1 prospect to an all-star to an afterthought. Kind of a bumpy road for him. How's he look?
Yeah, he's looked pretty good. One of the biggest things is just his attitude. Since he's been down here, has been great. I think he's a good guy in the clubhouse with a lot of the younger guys. A lot of guys in his position who would have been an all-star and then, get sent to AAA to work on some things. That could be an unpleasant character in the clubhouse, I'm sure. But he's really taken it in stride and been positive about it. He's shown some better signs of late. He's hit in 10 of his last 11 games. He hasn't hit a home run yet. He hasn't really shown too much power yet. But I think the biggest thing is just getting him consistent at bats, and he's playing every day here. He's played a solid defensive right field. He was hitting in the 3 spot for a while, and now he's hitting 5th. I think it's only a matter of time before he gets going. You kind of wait for it, and you can see it in flashes, and then he'd have a game where he went 0 for 4 with a few tough swings and some pop-ups that didn't make it out of the infield. But I think I think with what's going on in Philadelphia, I don't think he'll be down here for all that much longer. But the outfield's kind of an interesting situation because whenever Ashy's ready, then he'll play left field, you'd think, and then Revere's up there, and they got Francoeur and Sizemore and Herrera, and there's another guy down here, Brian Bogusevic. He's hitting in the 300s. He had a pair of 12-game hitting streaks, and he plays great defense. He's fast. He's a threat on the base pass. So I think the outfield is one of those areas to watch where you got a lot of guys who are kind of in contention, and you see what they can do down here, and it'll be interesting to see how it translates up there. If they get that chance.
Well, Greg, we asked you a lot about the players that many people are aware of. Do you see any other players who could contribute to the big league club that maybe some of the listeners aren't as familiar with? Yeah,
I think Brian Bogusevic is one. Jordan Danks is another. He's been pretty solid when he gets time. His playing time has kind of gone down a little bit because now with Ashy in left field, Don Brown in right field every day, and then Bogusevic has been playing center field. So Danks' playing time has gone down a little bit, but he's shown some potential when he gets in there. Another guy is Tyler Henson. He's having a pretty solid year this year. He showed a lot of signs last year. He's a guy who's he's been in the minor leagues for a long time. He thought last year was the closest he came to making it to the majors. Didn't ultimately get there, but he's a very versatile guy. He can play all the outfield. He can play second base, third base. He played some short last year. He can kind of go all around. The biggest thing with him is trying to cut down on his strikeouts. I know that's a point of emphasis for him. And then the other guy is Russ Kanzler. He's been up in the major leagues before with the Indians. And, he's a power threat down here. He's a fan favorite. He's a nice guy, good clubhouse guy. Hits for a solid average. And, he's a kind of a constant in the cleanup spot here. So I think, it'll be interesting because, who knows what will go on in the Phillies moves the rest of the year. So there's definitely a lot of moving parts, it seems like, throughout the season.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people in Lehigh are anxious to see some of the Reading guys get up there pretty soon because there's a lot of big names that are making waves as well. But to look at the Iron Pigs with Franco coming up and Ashy down, and Greg Joyce at GJoyce9 on Twitter for your ability to follow some of the Iron Pigs and their progress. Greg, we appreciate the time.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Mike. I appreciate it.